Hello, I'm Thomas Hare, Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves companies in the performance and direct-to-consumer marketing world. Welcome to the first event in our fall seminar series created by the PDMI's Workshop Council. Grow your DR business strategically by automating better. We welcome all of you to today's event, PDMI members and non-members alike. Speaking of membership, if you're not a PDMI member but are attending today, we'd love to have you consider joining. There's no better way to support the mission of the PDMI than joining and sharing your voice in the direction of the industry. In the handouts tab of your control panel, you'll find our PDMI membership brochure. I urge you to download it, flip through it, and contact any of our team members should you desire more information. Before we get to the conversation today, a quick housekeeping note. The group will be addressing any questions from the audience at the end of today's session, but you don't have to wait to ask them. Utilize the questions tab on your control panel to type and send your question in. We'll be collecting them, and we'll try to get to as many as possible in the final moments of the webinar. Today, the Workshop Council welcomes a quartet of performance media and MarTech experts to its virtual stage to help you learn proven strategies to use data automation to not only speed operations and get information faster, but to ramp up your direct response and direct-to-consumer business more intelligently. How can you prioritize your automation needs? How can you find the automation partner that's right for your business? And what are the key opportunities for growth to pursue once automation has tamed the manual work? This group here has some thoughts to share on these topics and more. Your moderator today is Greg Miller, who brings more than a decade and a half of experience in media planning, TV data management, and technology to his role as Vice President, Associate Media Group Director at Eicoff, a full-service advertising agency using the power of television and the precision of digital. He works closely with direct response advertisers to use data strategically and intelligently to maximize sales with maximum efficiency and effectiveness. Welcome, Greg. Please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. So we know the subject today. We have a panel of 3 leading TV automation experts with us today. When I say your name, if you could all maybe just wave to the camera so everyone can put a face with a bio or a quick intro. So first is Kevin Gaffney, Executive Vice President, Product Strategy at CoreMedia Systems, whose CoreDirect software is the industry's most widely used performance media management system. Kevin will be bringing a buy-side perspective to the automation conversation. Next up is Will Offeman, Chief Product Officer at WideOrbit, whose media-focused products create value on both sides of the media transaction. Will will be bringing a perspective of how sell-side automation improves outcomes for the buy side. And last but not least is Cordie DePascale, Chief Strategy Officer at Premium Media 360, whose Clear CLIR suite of products automates data sharing between the buy side and sell side partners. Cordie represents that bridge or the connective tissue between the buy and sell sides of the equation. So we have a handful of questions to talk through today. The format will be a round table. Each question will be directed at an individual. Once they have an opportunity to comment or answer the question, it will be opened up to the rest of the panelists with us today. I may even chime in a few times myself. We will make sure to leave enough time for the Q&A at the end. So again, please make sure to chat away your questions as you think of them. So with all that said, are you guys ready to go here?
Good to go.
Ready.
Let's do it. So Cordie, this first question is directed at you. What specific problems does data automation solve for, and particularly the problems that tend to come as a surprise?
Yeah, the surprise part's an interesting one, but yeah, the data automation challenge is really about scaling your business and growing your business. And speaking from experience, talking about that surprise part, as a media assistant using CoreDirect or even homegrown solutions back in my days as a direct marketer, my job was to basically get all of the data entered between different and varying systems. So, on one hand, we had a little handoff from an application called Donovan Data Systems that fed my direct response application, which ultimately became a transition to CoreDirect, working with Kevin. So my job was to handle all of the business that we had, data enter all of the different aspects of data. So that could be traffic or copy instructions. It could be exact times for me to match my response data. It's a myriad of different types of data. So as you can imagine, if you're dealing with 1 or 2 or 10 accounts, it can become very stressful to go through and quality control all of the data entry. And so, we're talking 1994, 1995, fast forward to today, we're still seeing a lot of that stuff happen at various places, except yours, where we're installed and we're helping to automate a lot of your day-to-day. And we do that through, our applications, through our Clear suite of products, in your case, Clear Logs. And what we do there is on the seller side, we're able to, pull data out, match it up with the header codes that you guys use, and then bring it straight through into Core Direct through the automation that we have partnered with there. So it's really just about scale. I mean, if you think about who you have in your org and how much you want to grow your business, you can't do that without throwing bodies at the fire, and automation, technology helps to do that, to eliminate the bodies at the fire thing. Yeah.
I following on with Cordie, I mean, at the core of it, maybe pun intended, it's, eliminating manual error, keystroking mistakes, and keeping systems in sync. And it is really the entire workflow process, everything from pre-buy to orders to copy instructions, trail instructions, airtimes, invoicing, payment, in figuring out both how the industry works today and how we can keep the systems in sync. But as we automate, I do think it also opens up opportunities to advance the industry outside of some of the traditional paradigms. So, there's a lot of push in the digital world for programmatic and marketplaces. I don't see them as a perfect fit for the traditional over-the-air broadcast, but I think some of the mindsets of how transactions are occurring, the pay-for-performance model, obviously impression-based, those are steps that sort of the automation helps one walk towards. So I really think, we got to fix and keep our systems in sync and advance going forward.
Absolutely. Kevin, did you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, and I think the goal of a lot of this isn't, to Will's point, to change the whole workflow and make it digital. It's just, buyers and sellers will still be transacting and negotiating. It's automating all the paperwork and the keystrokes and all of the things of shooting emails back and forth that really kind of drag down the process today, that if that becomes a much more fluid, dynamic thing, it obviously just frees up a lot of effort on each side.
Yep. And sort of sitting as the end user of a lot of this automation, a lot of this technology, I could not agree more with everything you all just mentioned. So thank you for that. Next question, Will, this is directed toward you to start, at least. So I guess we're living in unprecedented times, right? Some businesses may be overly cautious or leery of making any operational changes until they see, maybe some light or more light at the end of the tunnel. So with that, what, in your opinion, is the downside of delaying automation?
I mean, there's that old adage, when's the best time to plant a tree? It was 10 years ago. When's the second best time? It's today. The longer we delay, the more inefficiencies just keep happening within the industry. And the automation at the core of it, right? It helps organizations reallocate their resources to do more useful things, primarily to think versus just keying things in and making sure that, these emails that come in are synced up with data in the system. There's so much human waste in just swivel chairing between systems and double checking to make sure everything is accurate. So not only is there that, right, which is the benefit of the timeliness and less errors and, making sure your people are doing more valuable things. The belief, though, is that the stations and buyers that adopt this sooner, at least from a station perspective, the hope is that they'll actually get the demand sooner, right? That they'll be able to see offers coming in more quickly, be able to act on them. For the buy side, it may be having revisions flow faster, getting confirmations back that that's occurred, being able to adjust creative faster, not waiting for an email to go through and hoping somebody got it. The other thing is just spot times, right? The air times for when these units are going to air, getting that in a timely manner and making sure everything is synced up. At the end of it all, yes, it's about reducing friction, but it's also about making things better. So we want to match what the workflows are today, but also improve upon them so that we can actually do better things in the future.
Yeah, I think from in our agency perspective, I think if we're not doing it, someone else is. So if we can be providing that insight to someone, all the better. I think that's the, like you had just mentioned, Will, if we're not doing it, that others are. So, and
I do think it there's a little bit of a first mover advantage in this too. The buy side that are quick to adopt and the sell side that's quick to adopt, people look and it's like, that's a better way. You become sort of a thought leader in the industry as well. So,
yeah. Kevin, Cordie, you want anything to add to that one?
Yeah, no, I think Will is exactly right. And, the reason why we're here today is to talk about what it is we've done together and are doing together. I think, the important thing is, I always go back to a quote from Rick Roush Jr., who was at Eicoff running technology systems many years ago. And his guidance to me was, he's like, if you introduce another keystroke in my workflow, I'll never use that automation. And I said, that's a great rule of thumb, being a kid and kind of, coming up in the industry. And so we look to, like Kevin said, not upset the apple cart, right? We don't want to introduce anything that's like markedly different for buyers. And, case in point, in our ordering integration that the three of us are working on, we're looking at how direct response buyers generate what we call a media schedule, right? Or a, brand time schedule in general market terms, and how that goes out as a PDF and turning that PDF into what really should be the underlying data, so that between the buy side and the sell side, that data is not being rekeyed in by the sellers. And so in our partnership with Core and with WideOrbit, we're facilitating that data transmission and making it easier for that flow of data without buyers having to do much more than press the button. That's what they're already doing today. So I look at it from that perspective as we're always taking an eye toward improving process, but not upsetting the apple cart and introducing something that's way off in left field.
Very interesting. I remember Rick Roush. Brings up fond memories.
He's a character. Yeah,
he definitely was.
And to go on for what Cordie's saying too, it lays the foundation for more information being shared. So once the orders can come in electronically, we can start to provide feedback back into, say, clearance levels, like, based upon the demand that's in the station system, here's the probability that these orders are going to clear in the weeks. Like, there's a whole bunch of improvements that we can make once we start to take the people out of the processes, which is the first step in everything. And it's not to upset the apple cart where business transacts, but it's to add more and more value to everyone involved.
Absolutely. All right. Moving forward here, Kevin, we'll send this one your way. What does automation free up time and/or data to do? And follow that up with, how can businesses use automation toward faster and more effective growth?
Yeah, I think Will gave me the perfect segue there, laid that one up for me. So obviously, when you take people out of banging away on a keyboard all day and hoping they don't fat finger something and getting it wrong and putting in the wrong information, you can empower both the people as well as the systems to do more things. So, I always look at linear TV as being, a part of, everyone's looking at digital and CTV and OTT and all these other mediums that are a couple of clicks and you can be on the air and transacting, and to still kind of put the blinders on and say, hey, we're still going to do it the old way and be shooting PDFs. And, I'm exaggerating, but sadly not by much, but the fax machine is barely, not used anymore at agencies. And, that type of mindset going into 2022 and beyond simply doesn't help people to transact in this space. And so the more of this automation we can put in, and again, not trying to disrupt buyers and sellers negotiating, but being able to transact the deal that's been agreed to, and then put all of the data elements together, from log times and pre-logs and post-logs and all of the traffic data and all of that stuff matching up so that there's less errors. There's more thinking then that can happen around the data that's in there, instead of spending your time having to deal with the data. And again, PDFs and Excel and all that stuff, what we always say are, from a software provider's perspective, our nemesis is Excel, because people are always doing stuff in Excel and would rather do it in Excel, but it doesn't help from a systems perspective. There's no rules governing things that you can input. 37 o'clock doesn't, Excel doesn't care about 37 o'clock, but a system does. So there's all of that stuff that you can do once you start to automate the flow of data. And I think, by starting to push all of these processes in that direction where they're still doing the same thinking, they're still doing the same research, all of that stuff is happening in, things like our application, but to be able to push a button and send that electronically on off to the station, get confirmations back and forth, log times back and forth, traffic confirmations back and forth, all of that stuff obviously just frees up people to make better decisions on the data that they're seeing.
Yeah, I think, again, sort of looking at myself being that end user of a product like Core and all the different automation we can kind of execute with it. Clients these days are, I'm not going to say demanding, but they want more and more from us, probably now more than ever. And so when you look at maybe an organizational structure, I think that free time, depending on your role within the organization, you can either service, the keyword here is effectively, but you can effectively service more clients. Right? Or, if you're in more of a leadership role, that free time, you can provide that thought leadership on a more ongoing basis with your clients. I think that's an invaluable sort of benefit from this automation.
Yeah, and even just from a time frame of the workflow. So again, like connected TV or something like that, you literally can put a buy on the air and be watching impressions be delivered in real time. And, as it's happening, for the most part in the linear world, if I ran a spot yesterday, I don't find out till next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday-ish from a post-log perspective. I'm almost 10 days later before a network can tell me if something has run or not. So that whole mindset has to change, that, not only has to be automated, but it's got to kind of live in the real-time world that the other medias transact in as well. So the more timely, the more automated, the more efficient we can make everyone from a data perspective, the better decisions you can make with that data.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I look at that, Greg, from the perspective of the volume of data that comes through, and then, the workflow that we have in direct response to, not just make sure that the copy is right and the commercial airtimes come through, but then you get to attribution, and, your best picture of attribution happens when you have complete airtimes. And so those outcomes drive our decisions about what works and what doesn't. And, if you don't have the automation that, like we have at Premium Media 360 in place to clean the data, make sure that it's quality before it enters into your transactional system, you're behind the eight ball to figure it out on your own. And that causes a lot of stress for the resources who are involved, stress that I've lived through myself because I had to do that work. So knowing, what I had gone through as a direct response marketer, years ago, helps me in the Premium Media team to build the solutions that, that get us that type of automation.
Yeah, Cordie nailed it, which is not only does it free up time, but it removes so much frustration from the daily job. It is annoying trying to keep all of these things in sync, and why didn't this happen, and why is this here? And yes, it lets us serve our customers better, but the people that are doing the serving actually, I think, feel better about their jobs as well. So yeah, it takes grunt work.
I would agree with that. I think anyone who's probably worked at an agency, at least on the buy side, has felt that stress where you have an upcoming client meeting, or just even if it's a status call, and you're missing, well, it's just nuts and bolts, you're missing some airings, and that could add up to a lot of money that you're not talking to. So absolutely, that's the case. Next question, I think we'll point this one back to Cordie here. How can businesses know when it's time to make that switch to an automated solution? So I guess there's obvious signs, right? And then some subtle warning signs that could point to them needing to take action like right now.
Yeah, I mean, the best time to automate is today. The solutions that are in market and that we provide on both the buy side and the sell side are really just meant to speed those transactions. I always think about my clients back, when I was working in direct response, saying, "Where's my report? It's Thursday afternoon. Where's that report?" And it's like, all right, well, I have to call Macon, Georgia, and get all the air times from that market in, and then I've got my cables that I've got to go down through, and then once that gets into the system, then I can start assigning the response data to it. And if you're behind the gun on that, automation just leaps you forward, right? And at J. Walter Thompson, back when that was the story for me, we built direct response applications that did that. And then what we realized was we couldn't automate enough. And the migration to Core Direct made it easier for us to automate all aspects of the workflow from beginning to end. And I think, for me, it resonates that the best time to automate is yesterday, right? So, that's how I look at it.
Awesome. Will, Kevin, you want to build on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same point that Cordie made, that there is no real business reason not to try and automate. That it doesn't make sense to say, hey, I'm going to have this manual process in place. Like, if it's available, do it. Yeah, there's nothing to Will's, tree anecdote. 10 years ago would have been great, but there's no point in waiting another 10 years. There's lots of opportunity, and especially at scale, if you say, hey, this shaves off 10 minutes here, this shaves off 15 minutes here, you start doing that across 15, 20 people, and it's real dollars to be saved by, I always say it's college educated people banging away on a keyboard all day long. It's a frustrating job to do. It's a thankless job, because eventually you're going to put 5:15 a.m. instead of 5:15 p.m. in, and mess up reports, and wondering why a client's report is wrong. All of that stuff needs to just go away and automate using all of the processes that are available today.
And I'm going to be selfish to the sell side right now. So WideOrbit may or may not be well known to the buy side, but we have a large footprint on over-the-air TV, radio, national cable, et cetera. And there are tons and tons and tons of accounts that our customers work with. And so one thing that we found as we were rolling out electronic material instructions is there is a little bit of a need for critical mass. So when we had just one integration partner and a station was getting 10% of their instructions electronically, they still had to deal with the 90% that were coming through emails and still fax machines. And so the more the industry adopts, the more value that occurs as well. And it's easier now with electronic material instructions because we've sort of hit that critical mass, and stations can go, oh, wow, I'm getting instructions from 80% plus of the people that I do business with. The same thing is kind of with airtimes, right? You guys want to make sure that you're not doing one-offs to 100 different providers, that you have one consistent way of aggregating all that information. And the same thing with what we're doing with orders, right? The switch is relatively easy once everything is working. There is a little bit of time until that critical mass occurs. And the folks on this phone call, we're proponents of making this happen as quickly as possible, because it makes everyone's jobs easier, our jobs and our customers' jobs.
Yeah, I think Cordie, I think you were the one who mentioned that just try it, just do it. Like, there's no reason to wait, right? I think if you look at it from a, just sort of a overarching DRTV best practices, it's test everything and learn from that. And if it doesn't work, don't move forward with it. There's going to be some things that aren't a good fit for your business and some things that are. So, it's in your best interest to just test everything.
Yeah, I mean, in our cases as technologists, our thing is, look, we've tested it, we've made sure that it works, we piloted it with, trusted agencies and sell side partners, and when we bring that to market, will it be complete? Will it be perfect? No software solution is ever perfect. It's always evolving and enhancing and improving over time based on feedback from the different constituents using it. So, that's why I say, the best time to do it is yesterday, because the sooner we get all of that feedback, the better the solution becomes over time. And in a compressed time frame, because the more folks using it, the more feedback you get, the better the solution becomes.
Absolutely. All right, jump to the next question here. We'll go to Will with this one. What problems should businesses prioritize for data automation to solve? So if you were to stack them up for us, or what should come first, where's your head at with that one?
So what's interesting, and we've already been working a lot with Cordie and Kevin, is actually data cleanliness, and really making sure that the data that's being moved between the two systems or multiple systems is accurate. And it starts with even agreeing upon the language. So our trafficking system doesn't sell time, it sells inventory codes. So, and there's programming, and oftentimes the buy side system have time blocks and program names. And so we have to get in agreement, for example, in the ordering process, once that inventory discovery has happened, how does that information flow back into the trafficking system? Same thing with ad IDs or ISKI codes, right? A lot of stations will put like an H or an S at the end of it because they need to distinguish between HD or SD. Something as simple as that throws off all of the machines trying to figure out what things are. So I'm a big believer that there are business processes to improve upon, right? And we'll probably go from pre-buy all the way down to payments. But I think the first thing that the vendors collaboratively need to work on is making sure the data is accurate, right? It's that garbage in, garbage out. If we do not have that done correctly, it's very hard to build upon everything else. And there'll be no better world than you guys inventory discover, that inventory goes in through an order, it gets scheduled in traffic, there's an identifier for it, the ad copy creative comes in, that's matched. Everything ties back out on an invoice. Like, that'll be a beautiful day. And it's crazy that we're not there yet. It really is crazy. But a lot of it just has to go with, not a lot of attention went to making sure literally the words that we use to communicate are the same. Agency name, advertiser name, brands, all that sort of stuff. So that's where I think we've started on that process, Greg.
Yeah, Will, and you just brought up one of the things, and it makes me nuts that, SD and HD is still a thing, that we're still like gumming up the works of automation because some people put an S and an H at the end of an ad ID or ISKI code. Like, that's the type of stuff that we just need to get better at so that it doesn't cause automation to just fall down, because we're still trying to shove, square peg in a round hole with things like SD and HD.
Crazy. But those are the real world, and those are people trying to make the systems work. And so that's where you got to step back a little bit and say, let's look at how to just holistically improve things.
Yeah, I take some comfort in the fact that at one point in the call we said it wasn't that long ago we were using fax machines, and now look where we're at. So we certainly have made some strides as an industry.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Long ways to go though. So, all right. Next question, I think we can go over to Cordie with, what should businesses look for in an automation partner, and how do they know if the solution is or is not right for their business?
And I think you have to look at, where your business is in its life cycle and understand if, the automation solution that you're focused on will help your business to grow, to scale. And that's kind of the most important thing. It's not where you are today and solving for the problems that you have today. It's solving for the continued growth of your business and organization so that you have the right automation play, so that you're, as I said before, you're not constantly throwing resources, bodies at fires. You're using smart technology, clean data, and easy to use processes that help you to get your job done without having to go through lots of hoops to do it. And I think that's probably paramount for me. I mean, that was, look, when I was making choices between, do I continue to build my DRTV system at JWT Direct or, migrate over to CoreMedia Systems, and I made a choice at that point. I actually shifted agencies to one that was using CoreDirect because I believe strongly in it, and it solved all of the problems that I saw existed in direct response workflow all those many years ago. We grew our business from, call it 10, 15 million bucks. I mean, Kevin and I were losing our minds trying to get Bose up and running. That was one of our clients' early days, to, a $300 million business for, Interpublic, and all of it running on CoreMedia Systems. And fortunately for us, pharma was a thing then that opened up, and we just kept on rolling more and more and more, and CoreDirect kept on putting the reports out there for us on the basis that we needed. So, it's finding that solution, and it's growing your business and making that play. But evaluate your partners, work with them, look at what they have, listen to what others have said in the market about them. I know this personally now at PM360. We have lots of partners like yourselves who, say great things about us. If there are any cable companies out there and you're listening, sign up, because all the direct response folks on this webinar are interested in getting your data through premium media. So I think, those are the things that I think about today. And I feel like, we have a good handle on how our industry can scale and grow and be competitive with connected television and digital.
Absolutely. Just my thoughts on things that we would look for, and I think you guys represent sort of the best of all of this, is they boiled it down to a list of 4 things. Transparency. If we don't see how this is happening, if it's in a black box, we won't touch it. It's just sort of a hard stop there. Support. We look to, you guys, as this is your technology that's being lifted up and creating this automation. We hope to become experts in that, but we'll need to lean on you all as this gets onboarded. Alignment on goals. This does not really apply to this group, but technology is cool in a lot of ways, and it can solve for a lot of different problems. But you have to make sure it's aligned with, from our perspective, that agency goal, or is it fulfilling a need of a client? And then one that's sort of inherent in this group, but benchmarks for success, right? Like, what should we look for 1 month out, 3 months out, 6 months out, and know that we're on the right path to success? Because that can kind of get swept under the rug once something's been, lifted into an agency or into any process, and can easily be forgotten. But those are the things you kind of need to look back upon to make sure you're on that right path. So
right. Yeah, those are great points. And I think the KPIs are critical, because for us as technology people, we need to know what we need to build next. And if there are anything that occurs inside of your use of our automation, the KPIs help. They tell us the story about where to go next and what we need to improve. So yeah, I agree with all of what you said.
Yeah, and from the core side, again, we always say we hate building software that no one uses. So we can build all these great hooks and we think we've got these great things, but you need partners to be aggressively pushing this automation everywhere and demand that from their partners as well. So, almost back to Will's point, if a network group is doing 90% of their work manual and 10% automated, at some point they'd almost want 100% to be manual, because it's one process they've got to support. So unless you can get a lot of tonnage and say 50, 60, 80% of my process is now electronic, then they're going to aggressively fight to get that other 20% automated as well and see the benefit. So the more you kind of demand compliance from all of the partners to transact electronically, the better this whole space will be.
Absolutely.
Those are, and you said it earlier too. It's performance and measurement, which is very applicable to this. Like, how are these tools, impacting my business? And is it making money, saving money, reducing pain? The other piece that I just wanted to add is, in this industry, it's small, and trust and word of mouth and standing up and doing what you say you're going to do is vitally important. So whenever you work with anyone in this industry, you want to, know that they have your back and that they're reliable and they're going to deliver. So, and that's why I've personally enjoyed working with Cordie and Kevin, because I like them and I like building software with them. So I think that's also just important. You want to like the people you do business with.
Thank you, Will. We love you too, man.
You're welcome. When you're at Mediation, no, teasing.
I won't share that with Michael Donovan. It's fine.
Okay, good.
All right, just moving through here. We're going kind of fast, but up to Kevin here. What is one key tip, in your opinion? We'll open this up to the group, but just what is everyone's one key tip for for a successful automation ramp up?
So I think it's like many things. By automating doesn't mean you've got to turn the switch off and on the manual side. And so we would, actually encourage you to continue doing both until you get comfortable. So from our side, if we're pushing out media orders, for example, there's nothing that stops you from still shooting the PDF off via email, as well as sending an XML document that can be ingested. And the hope is after a few weeks, you feel foolish about still sending the PDF off, like, hey, are they getting this? But we're not breaking the workflow. We're adding existing options to make it a little bit more fluid. And so that is the thought, that it's not like you got to turn one off to turn the other one on. Try it for a campaign, a network, get comfortable with it, and then continue to migrate more and more over until, again, to Cordie's point, as more networks come on board, as more people start to transact things electronically, we're there to support any kind of, things that we need to do to make sure that it continues to work that way. but try it. Try it, and it doesn't mean you have to stop doing it the old way.
I just want to add, for the sellers particularly, there is training and there are different workflows. And there's, for example, either with orders or with instructions, there's a queue. And so these things show up in a queue. And so they're not going to an email or to their file cabinet, they're doing it electronically. And they have to, open it up, look at it, and then, match either like a client product estimate or some types of mechanisms to match things up. So I don't want people to think that it's panacea and it's magic. There are still training and onboarding, and yes, it will make their lives a lot better, but it's going to be change, and just some patience with the change and with the people that are in the seats taking the change is, I think, vitally important for successful onboarding. No one likes change, and a lot of people are stuck in their old patterns. So just knowing that a little bit of patience is a good thing.
Yeah. And to add to what Kevin and Will said, I think it's you find that champion, in your organization, whether you're buy side, sell side, someone who believes in it and someone who can build up the trust in the technology. I mean, we saw this with electronic materials instruction, where in parallel, PDFs of copy instructions are used alongside of data as they build the trust in using the technology. And, obviously we're providing quality assurance in that process as well, to make sure that all the use cases that are needed for automation have been covered. I think once you get to that point of, yes, I'm satisfied with where the technology is, and I'm ready, to Kevin's point, to shut off, the distribution of a PDF or something that's human readable and just rely on the data output, that's a great day, right? That's a win for everyone. And we build up into more of a, I don't want to say programmatic, future, but a very heavily automated future where, the data that you enter, to Will's point, garbage in, garbage out. But if you're careful about your data entry, it is going to make it exactly as you entered it over to the seller side, or vice versa when stuff comes back from the sell side to you. So I think those things are things to consider. But, again, I'll go back to who's used it before and what are they saying about the technology. And I'd love to name names, but I really can't. But they're all looking for us to do more on the EMI side. And it's kind of a funny thing because we're like, okay, well, great. Now we need more agencies to participate, right? So there's all of that kind of goes into it too. That's, both sides of the trade have to be, working together to enable that. So I encourage everybody to leverage automation where it exists between the trading partners on the buy and the sell, and just start using it.
Yeah. I think, Kevin, I think you said, it's not like you have to pause one thing to just move forward in this new direction. That's sort of how I don't know what version of Core we're on now. It's sort of been there since the start, but every time a new automated process comes out, we have a dedicated team that sort of moves forward with testing this, whatever's new within the system, whatever's automated for us next, testing that rigorously so that, it's not like we're all tripping if we're not catching on very quickly. It's sort of a nice workflow we've sort of been doing for a while. I just think from an overarching end user perspective, I think sort of the one key tip, and this not only applies to automation, but a lot, several parts of our business, is understand what that automation is and what it's doing. Because if you just sort of implement this new strategy and pivot and keep moving down your path and not really pay attention to how it's operating, you won't know what to look for if something goes wrong. And I think that's as everything becomes automated these days, it's in your best interest to just really be involved in that onboarding process and to have an internal expert as to how it's all happening. So that gets us through all of the pointed questions. Does anyone have any wrap-up thoughts before we go to the Q&A here?
I'll go first. So WideOrbit was started back in 1999, and Eric Matthewson founded the company. He had a goal just to make it easier to buy and sell media. And we started on the sell side because he had the belief that it's impossible to transact unless you know what your inventory is. And so we endeavored to clean up the system of record for inventory and have done a pretty good job about that. As we start adding in more and more of the automation pieces, we are streamlining these traditional touch points, and it's exactly the right thing to do, because we had an endeavor to launch a marketplace that was way too out in the future. It was modeling programmatic and half-hour time blocks, and we learned a lot that we have to serve our customers in the workflows that they are accustomed to before you can start adding lots and lots of changes to this ecosystem. But everything that we've been doing is laying a foundation for these marketplaces, for different ways to transact. And I think what's been helpful working with Cordie and Kevin, we try to understand our customer's customer. So, right, we serve the publishers, the stations, and they have to serve yourselves and the agencies. And so that's why these things are so useful, is by understanding what both sides are trying to accomplish. Yes, we can match what the industry has been doing, but then we can come up with creative ways to actually make it even better going forward. So yes, I've been doing this for 21 years, and I feel like we are just on the cusp of making it transformational. So it takes longer than I think anyone imagined.
Yeah, I can attest to the length that it took to get where we are today. I think, look, our founders are the brand marketers for direct response, right? They produced goods that were advertised on DRTV, and they are the guys and gals asking, "Where's my report?" Right? So I think out of their frustration, Premium Media 360 evolved and emerged as the solution to making it easier for the trading partners to transact and work together to get those reports generated, to know where your campaigns are as they're happening versus waiting for the end of the campaign when the ship sailed and the invoice is in and it's too late to do anything about it. So I think that's kind of paramount. And, to Will's point, you have to understand both sides of the trade. And so, our organization is made up of, broadcast media, sell side experts, as well as agency experts. So, we're proud of that fact, and the solutions that we provide, enable all of us to do business together more efficiently. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously same thing from the core side. Been out here for 25 plus years with our system in production, about 10 billion-ish or so transacted annually, and again, way too much of manual intervention along the way. So the more of this we can automate, the more it frees us up, both from a software development perspective. Cordie mentioned the attribution. All of that stuff just becomes much more timely when you're transacting in trusted real-time data. So you can't do good thinking about what you've got if you can't trust what you've got, or you don't know if you've got it all. So the more of this you can make electronic, my hope is that we can then start to change almost the rules of the game a little and say, hey, if I can send an order electronically, maybe I can get on the air tomorrow instead of it taking 2 or 3 days to get on the air. I can send cancellations and maybe get off sooner. The same, 10-day waiting for a post log thing, if I can shrink that down to real time, I can start really transacting and moving things around and just being much more tactical with my thinking. And so that's the hope, is that once we start to automate all of this data, we can really start building the tools to do better thinking about, assuming I've got good tactical real-time data to work against.
Thank you all so much. I guess I would invite Tom to come back.
Yeah, hey guys, well done. Thank you all. Got some good questions from the group out here, so we'll get to them. The first one's directly to you, Kevin. Is Core working on adding streaming to the platform?
We are, yeah. So that's very timely. We've just did an integration to one of the big DSPs out there that has a lot of over-the-top and connected TV data. We'll be announcing that shortly, but the plan is probably in the next month and a half or so to have that out in a production release. So we've got some early adopters doing some testing for us, and then the goal would be to roll that out so that all of dollars and impressions and all that fun stuff. Even deliverables will be fed directly into our system by day, by hour, so that you'll be able to see all of that lined up right next to all of your linear data.
Great, great. Another one, this is for the group, so whoever wants to run with it first, and I think they'd love to hear from all of you. What's your client base's #1 challenge from a data automation perspective?
I think I'll go with this one first. You know, it's definitely a product that's kind of evolved out of direct response, not necessarily looking at the response side of the equation, but more about the in-flight side of the equation. And that's, you know, really to kind of understand as far as clearances are involved and as far as in-flight mistakes might, you know, occur against your order. You know, we're happy to have that product in market and in use with direct response marketers as well as general market agencies who just kind of want to have that pre-process and know, you know, do I have copy instruction errors? Do I have horizontal vertical airing errors? You know, is my schedule running on track with what my pacing might be for clearances, you know, based on what I understand my clearances to be on a historic basis. So, you know, all of those things are important. And I think a lot of agencies look at us in our solutions there as a pre-process, you know, even before going into Core Direct, for instance, to do the attribution, to understand those things and make sure that they have completeness in the data before they're, you know, pressing the button and moving those airings into Core Direct for attribution. So we're seeing lots of, you know, different use cases across the board, you know, in our applications, and it really just varies on who we're working with and how inventive they are in using our solutions. So we've seen a lot of really good usage coming through live in the field from folks using our in-flight products.
Yeah, I think from the core side, it's tonnage. You know, back to Cordie's point earlier, the more network groups that agree to start transacting electronically, the simpler this whole process is. You know, and if network group A does a little bit this way, network group B does a little bit differently, network group C but it's difficult to automate all those varied processes. And, you know, that's where, going back a million years, the 4As used to do things with like media summits and try and bring everyone together and agree to standards. And perhaps some of that stuff needs to be done again. But you know, the more of this that we can sit down and say, I'm not trying to put something in the middle between buyers and sellers that are going to transact differently or negotiate differently or anything like. We're just trying to automate what's going, you know, through the pipes today, and so making it so that people don't have to key data. And the more that agree to do it, the less likely you're going to see people that don't do it in the future. So, you know, you really need to get on board quickly.
Yeah, I would suggest that the station's #1 request is improvement in the pre-buy processes, streamlining everything up front before it gets to order. And then tightly coupled, and this is a little bit more general rate-ish, but they have a lot of pain handling preempts and make goods and everything else, and having that streamlined. Like those, I think, are probably their greatest pain points that they would like resolved. And first, it is getting the systems to talk, right? So we need the buy sides and sell sides. But then, you know, the request will be, well, can't it just do an automated make good suggestion, right? Find similar programming in the next week and just automatically move it there. And so first it is, as we've been discussing, you know, making sure that the basics work, but then it's adding all the optimizations and improvements on top of it. And that was a very hard question to answer because there are just so many. Our software touches so many people, right? Like if you're in the continuity or copy, then you just want the instructions to come in. If you're in sales, you just want the, you know, maybe it's the posting to happen seamlessly. Like it's a tough one to say what is the most important, because there's just so many different users of our, you know, this ecosystem is got a lot of different people in it. So, but a good question.
Great. From an agency point of view, are there any best practices learned over the past few years when trying to automate post logs? Managing 100+ active stations that are not all BVS monitored can be a challenge. So,
yeah, I mean, from sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. The fact that we've begun to and implemented this, the automation of getting post logs in the system, is the day-to-day job from 10 years ago to now is wildly different. The amount we can accomplish just from that alone becoming automated is remarkable, and something we, is freed up, as I said earlier, just it frees up that time to, to service more clients effectively if you're in that role where you're putting us in. So it's made a huge impact on the way we operate day to day. I don't know if Cordie, you want to, or Kevin?
Yeah. So just quickly, I'll jump in there. So even we have something in our system that we would love to delete, but it's called a time clerk report. And basically, it's a report that you can go in and run and say, show me all the non-VBS detected stations on whatever buy with like a station contact and phone number, so that you can say, this week, I bought whatever 200 stations, 40 of them aren't picked up from VBS, or here's the 40 phone calls I have to make. And so it would lay out essentially a little grid that you can fill out, and the report is still there. It's ridiculous that we still need to be, saying here are the phone numbers and email addresses of the station reps you need to chase down to try and get your log times. Like, all of that needs to go away and just be much more electronic, so that it just flows automatically into the system without having to spit out contacts all over the place that you have to chase down for log times.
Yeah, and to Kevin's point on our side, the value there is if it's air times and it's on the the network or the local side, and getting that stuff automated, we are the answer to the time clerk report. So the more folks can automate their day-to-day on the sell side and schedule things to not only distribute the data out of their systems, but then have the agencies who are using the reciprocal part of that solution apply their header codes to the data and clean it before it comes through and get it into the format that CoreDirect can ingest, or whatever other reporting tool they have. That's the holy grail for me, and that's what Premium Media provides, and you guys actually use.
And for what it's worth, on WideOrbit side, we've spent a lot of effort to enable the push or pull of those airtimes from the trafficking systems. It used to be manual, right? They went into this tool called Spot Manager, they ran a report, they saved it off to Excel, and then emailed it over. But we now have the ability for them to schedule the pushing of the data. We have an API where it can get pulled. So we've what seems so simple it was not that easy to solve for. But I do believe we're in a place now where that is super low-hanging fruit to automate across the board.
Great.
Great. Try to get at least one more in here. As the industry transitions from linear to streaming, what challenges lie ahead on the data automation front?
A lot.
It's apples and oranges, right? I mean, you're talking ad serving, and you're talking about serving into first-party systems, right, that are kind of closed off. I mean, if you think about walled gardens and audience data, it's kind of an equal effect. I mean, we've partnered with companies like MadHive to work with the sell side to enable CTV impression data to flow through to our agency partners. The idea there is whatever we're building in automation for television gets us closer to automating the transition to connected television, holistic type world, right? Where, look, broadcast signals aren't going to go away. We're always going to have both worlds living alongside of each other for a time. But there are things that we can leverage on either side of those media types and channels into each other. And I think you're going to see a lot of that stuff bleed, across from CTV to TV and vice versa. So that to me is what's interesting. And I think the more we can do to kind of stay ahead of that, or even to steer, better capabilities, all the more better, right?
Yeah, and I think from the core side, the bigger challenge with a lot of this is putting it together when they really don't even speak the same language. So dopey things like this morning at 2 a.m. for a linear station is Monday, and it's calendar day, Tuesday to someone else. Broadcast month versus, non-calendar month. The mythical $100 spot that no one actually pays or bills $100 for. all of that stuff doesn't exist from a digital or connected TV world. So if you want to put that all together and have it make sense, there's a lot of that translation you've got to do back and forth to say, let's agree on what the date is. Stupid stuff like that you got to start with and say, this morning at 2 a.m. from a linear world, it was Monday. In a connected TV world, it's Tuesday. How do I go about putting that together on a report?
Right.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know I said a lot because I was kind of in jest, but it does start back to the language definitions and making sure folks are on the same page. The IAB has a lot of different standards, like they have their product catalog, product codes, but they don't match anything in the linear side. And in even asset identifiers, they're different between CTV and broadcast. There's no content standard. Like IDER is trying to get that so you can actually know what content you're targeting when you're buying things. So there's what I'm optimistic about though is the future is going to be a blend of the best of both worlds. For a while, it seemed like digital was going to just cram everything down. But what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are pausing and trying to learn about the goodness of what broadcast was, which was that unduplicated reach, shared experience. There's a lot of goodness, brand safety, product separation, all those things that people historically have wanted have not been in the digital world.
And we don't have bots.
Right. And we don't have fraud and invalid traffic and all of this stuff, malware. There's just a lot to improve upon. But I am super optimistic that is the thing that we keep thinking about, whether it's convergence, fluidity, unification, whatever the buzzwords are. How do these things come together going forward? It's super important, but it's got to start at the definition of what the data is.
Yep.
Agree.
Well, great, guys. I think we are running up against it here. A couple minutes till the hour. So I wanted to say thank you from the PDMI to all of you. Greg, wonderful job moderating. Kevin, Cordie, Will, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to the Workshop Council, which Cordie is a member of, for bringing us the event today. If you are a PDMI member and would like to get involved in the Workshop Council or any of our other councils, you can reach out to me directly to share your interest today. Your next opportunity to attend a PDMI event live online is our next episode of Take 20, the 20-minute webinar series created by our Brand Response Council, which will air Wednesday, September 29th at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Please visit thepdmi.com/take-20 to check out the upcoming schedule and register to attend today. The Workshop Council's next monthly seminar series event is slated for mid-November and will be announced soon. Keep an eye on your email and our social media for more. And of course, in less than 2 weeks, we look forward to seeing you in person at PDMI West in San Diego, October 4th through 6th. We urge you to join the hundreds of your clients, cohorts, and competitors for what we think will be a fantastic return to in-person events that'll set the stage for even bigger and better things in 2022. To register today, visit thepdmi.com/PDMI-West. Thank you again for joining us today. Thanks to the whole crew. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your work week. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody.